Ladies and gentlemen, death. A mystery that has fascinated, frightened, and puzzled humanity since the beginning of time. Every religion, every culture has tried to explain what happens after this life ends, and Buddhism offers one of the most profound, peaceful, and insightful understandings of this eternal question. According to Buddhism, death is not the end. It is not darkness, not destruction, not a punishment. It is a transition. Just as the sun sets only to rise again, our life too changes form, continues its journey, and evolves beyond what the eyes can see. Buddhism teaches that everything in existence is impermanent. Our body, our thoughts, our emotions, they come and go like clouds passing through the sky. When we die, the body returns to the earth, but the energy, the consciousness that drives us, moves forward. It carries with it the seeds of our past actions, our karma, which decide where the next chapter of our journey will begin. Death, then, is not to be feared but understood as a part of the great cycle of rebirth, known as samsara. Our thoughts, words, and deeds shape the world we enter next. Every act of kindness, compassion, and truth plants a seed that blossoms into peace and happiness in future lives. Every act of anger, greed, or ignorance plants the seeds of suffering. In this way, we are the creators of our own destiny. Buddhism doesn't ask us to fear the afterlife. It invites us to live so wisely, so mindfully, that death becomes just another step in a beautiful journey of awakening. When the moment of death comes, the mind separates from the body, and the true nature of our consciousness is revealed. If one dies with peace, awareness, and compassion, the passage is gentle, and the next birth aligns with harmony. But if one dies with attachment, hatred, or confusion, the mind is drawn into darker states of existence. That is why Buddhists emphasize mindfulness, meditation, and compassion, not just as spiritual practices, but as preparation for the final test of life, the moment of death itself. The ultimate goal, however, is not to be reborn again and again, but to break free from this endless cycle, to awaken to a state beyond birth and death, Nirvana. It is not a place, but a realization, a state of perfect peace, where all suffering ends, where the illusion of separateness disappears, and one becomes one with all existence. So when we ask, what happens after death? Buddhism gently turns the question back to us. What are you doing with your life now? Because how we live this very moment decides how we will die, and how we die decides what comes next. Therefore, live with love, speak with truth, and act with compassion. For these are the bridges that lead the soul beyond death into everlasting peace. In Buddhism, death is seen as a natural and inevitable part of existence, not as a tragic ending, but as a meaningful transformation. Life is like a flowing river, constantly changing its course, never staying the same. When the body dies, it is not the end of who we are. It is merely the end of one physical form. The consciousness, or mind, continues its journey, carrying with it the energy of all our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Just as a candle's flame can light another candle without losing its essence, our consciousness moves on to a new form of existence, guided by the laws of karma and nature. This understanding brings comfort and wisdom. because it helps us accept that death is not something to fear, but something to understand. It reminds us that everything in this world is temporary. Our body, our possessions, even our relationships. What truly continues beyond death is the energy of our intentions and deeds. The experiences we go through in this life are lessons shaping the path of our consciousness. In this way, death becomes a teacher, showing us the importance of how we live right now. When we view death as a transition, our perspective on life changes completely. We stop clinging so tightly to things that fade and begin to value the things that truly matter: kindness, wisdom, and compassion. Buddhism teaches that the fear of death comes from attachment, from the false belief that we can hold on to this body or this identity forever. But when we understand that life and death are just two sides of the same journey, we begin to let go of fear and live more freely. This transition also reminds us of the beauty of renewal. Just as seasons change, as day turns into night and night back into day, so too does life continue beyond the physical body. The soul, or rather the stream of consciousness, never dies. It simply transforms. Each moment of our life is a preparation for that transformation. How we think, how we love, and how we act determine how peacefully we move from one state of existence to another. In this sense, death is not an ending to dread, but a door opening to a new beginning, one shaped by the choices we make today. The law of impermanence is one of the central teachings of Buddhism, reminding us that nothing in this universe remains the same. Everything we see, touch, and experience is in a constant state of change. Our bodies grow, age, and decay. Emotions rise and fall. Relationships begin and end. Even the mountains that seem eternal are slowly changing through time. This truth may sound unsettling at first, but it carries deep wisdom and freedom. When we truly understand impermanence, we begin to see that clinging to things, people, or situations can only bring suffering, because nothing lasts forever. Accepting change becomes the key to peace. Impermanence teaches us to live with awareness and gratitude. Each moment we experience is precious precisely because it will not return. Every smile, every breath, every sunrise is unique. By understanding this truth, we start appreciating life more deeply and stop wasting energy on what we cannot control. When we hold on too tightly to things, we suffer when they change or disappear. But when we accept that change is the very nature of life, we develop inner peace. We learn to flow with life instead of fighting against it. This law also helps us understand death. Death is not something separate from life. It is a natural part of the same process of impermanence. Just as night follows day and winter follows summer, death follows life. When we accept this, fear begins to dissolve. We realize that what we call death is simply a transformation, a continuation of the same universal rhythm that governs all existence. The body returns to the earth, and the consciousness moves forward, carrying the energy of one's deeds and intentions. Buddhism encourages mindfulness because it helps us observe impermanence directly. When we watch our thoughts come and go, when we notice how emotions rise and fade, we start to see the truth of constant change. This understanding makes us wiser and more compassionate. We stop taking life for granted and begin to treat others with kindness, knowing that our time together is fleeting. The law of impermanence is not a reason to despair. It is a reason to live more fully, to love more deeply, and to appreciate every passing moment as part of the beautiful, ever-changing flow of existence. In Buddhism, karma plays a powerful and essential role in shaping what happens after death. It is not seen as a reward or punishment from an external force, but as a natural law of cause and effect. Every action we take, every word we speak, and every thought we hold creates energy that eventually returns to us, either in this life or the next. Just as planting a seed determines what kind of tree will grow, our actions determine the quality of our future experiences, including where and how we are reborn. Good actions rooted in kindness, compassion, and truth create positive karma that leads to peace and happiness. Negative actions fueled by greed, hatred, or ignorance create negative karma, leading to suffering and lower states of existence. This understanding places great responsibility on each individual, because it means that we are the creators of our own destiny. No one else decides our future, not fate, not a god, but our own choices. Death is not an end, but a doorway through which the results of our past actions follow us. The consciousness carries this karmic energy into the next life, shaping the circumstances of rebirth. This could mean being born in a peaceful, fortunate state, or in a realm of suffering, depending on how we lived. Karma also teaches us that nothing in life is random. Every joy and every pain has its roots in actions, whether in this life or previous ones. This perspective encourages us to live with awareness and integrity. It reminds us that even small acts of kindness can have a lasting impact, just as harmful actions can create deep consequences. By choosing love over hatred and generosity over greed, we build a future that reflects those choices. Buddhism encourages people to purify their karma through mindfulness, compassion, meditation, and right action. When we act with a clear mind and good heart, we not only improve this life, but also prepare for a better transition after death. Understanding karma removes fear and helplessness because it empowers us to shape our path. Life and death become a continuous flow of choices and consequences, where every moment is a chance to create positive energy that will guide us toward a peaceful and meaningful rebirth. The cycle of rebirth, known in Buddhism as samsara, represents the endless flow of life, death, and rebirth that all beings experience until they attain enlightenment. It is a continuous journey of the soul, shaped by karma and ignorance. In this cycle, beings are born into different realms of existence: human, animal, heavenly, or even realms of suffering, depending on the karma they have created. Each life is temporary and leads to another. Much like the changing seasons, this endless loop continues because of desire, attachment, and ignorance, which keep the mind bound to worldly experiences and illusions. Buddhism teaches that within this cycle, happiness and suffering coexist, and neither lasts forever. People often chase pleasure and avoid pain, believing that happiness can be found in external things. Yet these moments fade, and dissatisfaction returns. This craving for more keeps beings trapped in the cycle, seeking fulfillment in things that are impermanent. Only through awareness and wisdom can one begin to see the truth. That liberation does not come from worldly success or material gain, but from understanding and letting go of attachment. Every rebirth offers lessons and opportunities for growth. The conditions of each life reflect the karma accumulated in the past. A person born in peaceful circumstances has likely sown seeds of kindness and compassion, while one born in hardship faces the results of negative karma. But Buddhism also emphasizes that nothing is fixed. The choices we make in this very moment can change the course of our future rebirths. Through right actions, pure intentions, and mindfulness, one can rise to higher states of existence and eventually free the mind from the grip of samsara. The cycle of rebirth is not meant to be feared, but understood. It shows that life is far greater than a single existence, and that our journey continues far beyond this lifetime. The ultimate purpose of understanding samsara is to realize its impermanence and to strive for liberation, Nirvana. When we awaken to the truth that everything we cling to will one day fade, the heart begins to release its attachments. This awakening marks the beginning of freedom, where the soul prepares to step beyond the endless cycle of birth and death into eternal peace and enlightenment. The state of mind at the time of death holds great importance in Buddhism because it shapes the experience of dying and determines the quality of the next rebirth. At that final moment, the body becomes weak, the senses begin to fade, and all material attachments lose their meaning. What remains is the mind, the pure consciousness carrying the weight of one's karma. If the mind is calm, filled with peace, forgiveness, and compassion, the transition becomes gentle, and the next birth is guided toward harmony and light. However, if the mind is disturbed, filled with fear, anger, or regret, it creates confusion, leading the consciousness toward darker states of existence. This is why Buddhism places such deep emphasis on cultivating mindfulness and inner peace throughout life. When a person has practiced awareness during their lifetime, death does not come as a shock. It is accepted as a natural transformation. Meditation teaches one to observe thoughts without attachment, to face emotions without fear, and to remain centered even in uncertainty. This mental discipline becomes the greatest strength at the time of death. A peaceful mind is like a calm ocean. Even as the body breaks down, the consciousness remains still and unshaken, moving gracefully into the next phase of existence. Buddhist monks often guide the dying to focus on virtuous thoughts or to recall acts of kindness they have done. These positive reflections create powerful vibrations in the consciousness, which help in ensuring a peaceful departure. The moment of death is seen as a sacred opportunity, the final test of one's inner development. Those who have lived with wisdom and compassion often leave with serenity, as if simply passing from one dream into another. The teachings also remind us that preparing for death begins long before the final breath. Every moment of mindfulness, every act of kindness, and every meditation strengthens the mind for that inevitable transition. Instead of fearing death, Buddhism invites us to become familiar with it, to understand it as part of life's natural rhythm. When one's heart is free from hatred and attachment, death loses its power to terrify. It becomes not an enemy, but a passage, a continuation of the same journey of consciousness, shaped by the purity and peace cultivated in one's final moments. Nirvana in Buddhism represents the ultimate goal of existence, the complete liberation from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. It is a state of perfect peace and freedom, where all forms of suffering, ignorance, and desire come to an end. Nirvana is not a place or a heaven one travels to after death. It is a profound realization, a transformation of the mind that sees the truth of reality as it truly is. When a person attains nirvana, they awaken to a state beyond duality, beyond happiness and sorrow, beyond gain and loss. It is the end of attachment, the extinction of the fires of greed, anger, and delusion that bind beings to the endless cycle of samsara. The journey to nirvana begins with understanding, through deep meditation and mindfulness. One begins to see that all things are impermanent, that everything arising must eventually pass away. This realization dissolves the illusion of control and ownership. The ego, which clings to identity and desire, starts to fade. When craving ends, suffering ends. This freedom from craving and ignorance opens the door to nirvana, a timeless state of serenity where the mind no longer reacts, but simply rests in awareness and compassion. In this state, there is no fear of death, because there is no longer the illusion of a separate self to die. The enlightened being understands that birth and death are just movements within the infinite flow of existence. When the body dies, nothing is truly lost, for the essence has already transcended attachment to form. This realization is the deepest peace, a peace that cannot be shaken by pain, loss, or change. Buddhism teaches that the path to nirvana is through ethical living, meditation, and wisdom. These practices purify the mind and allow one to see beyond the illusions that create suffering. The person who has realized nirvana is described as having reached the unconditioned, a state beyond time, beyond sorrow, and beyond all limitations. They live with boundless compassion and clarity, free from the cycles that entrap others. Nirvana is not something to be gained in the future. It exists here and now for the one who awakens. It is the silent, eternal truth at the heart of all existence, the ultimate peace that lies beyond life and death. Thanks for watching.